Welcome to the Lawyers Weekly Show for an in-depth look at the issues facing the legal profession.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Lawyers Weekly Show. My name's Jerome Doraisamy. I'm coming to you today from Camaragal Land in Sydney, and I'm very pleased to be joined by a return guest. Danielle Snell is the managing partner of Elit Lawyers by McGirr and Snell. She's also a former winner of the Managing Partner of the Year category at our Australian Law Awards, and this is maybe her fourth appearance on the show. So either way, it's good to have you back, Danielle.
Thanks, Jerome, and Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year to you too. Now, today we are going to be talking about how lawyers can build firms so that juniors and parents don't have to neglect their other duties and roles in life. And this is something that, as a young parent myself and with another child on the way, I'm very keen to get Danielle's take on what it means to be a leader in a firm that accommodates to the idiosyncratic personal and professional needs of staff, and what that looks like in practice. Danielle, before we get into all of that, the first time that you and I spoke on this show was a number of years ago, and we spoke about how you had started your firm, Elit Lawyers, with Rob McGirr, whilst you were 7 months pregnant, which at the time I was just blown away by and have continue to be blown away by you, in the years since. So as a starting point and with that context, I wanted to ask you why you think this conversation is important to be having. Why do we need to be talking about creating workplaces, creating spaces that better cater to people's lives outside of work?
Yeah, of course. I think as a junior in the law, I didn't have the roadmap. I didn't have enough discussion around this, and that's why this is so important. It's like the more we talk, the more we brainstorm, the more we, create our own policies and practices. And as law firm owners, but also as just staff in legal firms, just regardless of the role that you hold, you're educating and it's front of mind, and the more front of mind it is, the more we can implement it in practice. So such an important chat to have. I'm glad to be here today.
Oh, I'm very glad to have you. There's probably a very obvious answer to this question, but how well has the legal profession done over the years at accommodating for these idiosyncratic needs?
Look, maybe not so well when I was a junior lawyer. I think we're getting so much better at it. Certainly as a junior myself, I saw a pattern where I would, be into the detail of any given case. I'm a litigator, so I'd do all the reading, I'd do all the preparation work, and then I'd be told when the really important parts of the case would come up, Jerome, thanks for that, good work, I'll do the talking from here, and I would move to the side. And that's that sort of stuff shapes careers and it shapes confidence. And so we've built things sort of based on measured responsibility and really had a really targeted focus on our lawyers providing as much input as possible, and being very much part of the conversation and part of the culture. And this is obviously just focusing on the professional needs of juniors as distinct from the personal needs. But I have this memory of being a very junior. I don't even think I was an article. I must have been an article clerk back in the day. I wasn't a practicing lawyer yet. And I think I'd been asked to do a mail delivery up to one of the barristers' chambers. And she was an imminent silk. And I went and delivered a piece of paper. It may have been a case. And I remember distinctly she asked me what I thought about the case. And it just struck me because I thought, wow, she cares about what I think about the case. And the ability to then, I had read it, the ability to then tell her what I thought, it was so empowering because it allowed me to think, well, my opinion as I guess as basic as it was back then, as it was not, I wasn't very experienced, I was a very junior buddy, but it still mattered and it was still a perspective that a very senior person in the law can always learn from.
And the extension of that, circling back to our topic of conversation for today, is that not only do the opinions and viewpoints of those junior staff matter, but the lives that they have outside of the office, they also matter as well.
Absolutely. So we really encourage that our lawyers that you hold multiple roles in your life, and that was very much why I founded the firm as a pregnant, wife, and I had another child at the time, but it was obviously during the COVID pandemic, and I don't know, and this is something that I've spoken about in the past, I just couldn't believe how, as I was growing up in the law, I was told, when you're meeting with a client, that is your persona. That is who you are. But we're humans. And I don't know, for me personally, it was the COVID pandemic. Obviously, we introduced clients into our living rooms and our dining rooms and all of that sort of thing. And so you started to talk to clients a bit more. But I think that it extends so much further beyond that, in that sort of deep human need for connection and how important it is that I think if you show people that you are a diverse individual, that you do other things in your life and you hold other roles in your life, in my opinion, and this is not necessarily something that I was taught when I was little, but so my very strong opinion that can only make you more interesting, more attractive, more knowledgeable, more diverse in your opinions and experiences. And so we really encourage our lawyers to be open with clients. And I often hear them talking to clients that they've been able to establish a rapport with about, hobbies, or, when you're in mediation rooms, you're often talking about non-law related topics.
I want to learn a bit more about how it works at your firm, and in wanting to create this environment whereby the personal lives of the staff, particularly that of parents, is of paramount importance. Is that something that you wanted to drive, given your own personal circumstances, being pregnant at the time of the firm's founding, and then also your experiences as a junior? Was it driven by the demands or expectations from those coming through the ranks? Was it both?
I was told that being a mother would stunt my legal career. It didn't. And that changed how I lead. It changed what I refused to, normalise in the workplace, and it forced me to, put boundaries in place, which is when we started Elit. So, mentoring takes so many different. There's so many different aspects to it, but certainly, I want staff that and the team that we work with, and it's not just necessarily our direct team members, but stakeholders that we work with, because we work with a lot of barristers and a lot of court staff and so forth. I think that I think it extends beyond, rather than just being a parent, it's about creating that diverse environment. So we have people from all different age groups. They're all in different walks of life. I think that's so important, because then when we're around the team meeting, you just get a totally different perspective on something, because they're living a totally different life to the staff member or the team member sitting next to them. Yeah.
We're chatting with Danielle Snell, and we'll be back with more right after this. So, Danielle, what does all of this look like in practice? Obviously, it's all well and good for firm owners to talk about the importance of embracing diversity and supporting the personal circumstances of each individual employee. It's obviously all well and good to have policies in place on paper, but in practice, what does this look like?
It's seizing opportunities, Jerome. So an example is we had a high stakes piece of litigation that was on foot, and a mediation was set down, and I had a prior court commitment and I couldn't do that. So I instead of changing the date or proposing that the date be changed, which was something that could have been put forward, I thought we have to seize this opportunity. And the junior associate he knew the case back to front. He knew the client very well. Let's give him the opportunity to lead this mediation. And so we spoke to the client, spoke to the other side, and he did. And it was just such an exceptional experience for him and something that empowered him. So that's from a professional perspective. It's those moments of, what do you think about this? And can you present on this? Or the way that you introduce, juniors into the conversation or introduce them to clients. It's seizing opportunities and not just having it like a surface tick the box type of approach. But then from a personal perspective, it's empowering staff to and understanding that everyone has a different life, everyone has a different journey that they're going through, and what are their key strengths, and how does working in the law in our instance, how does that best work into their life and their lifestyle? And I'm not going to lie, litigation is tough, and there's a lot of deadlines around it, and so forth. So there's always got to be that mutual ability to adapt and pivot. But I think that's the key word, mutuality, in the sense that, we recognise it's got to work for team members, and then also obviously the operation of the firm.
Yeah. And in the confines of the workplace, how do you look to, I guess, champion or advocate for the staff, bringing their whole selves to work, or embracing the fact that they have multiple roles in life, whether they're parents or whether they've got certain passions outside of the office? How do you look to, really champion those so that those other roles aren't being neglected?
One of the main things we do is we talk.
Yeah.
We invite discussion, and that can be around egg and bacon McMuffins in the morning, or like changing it up a bit, because it doesn't always need to be stagnant, right? And kind of caught like just, that traditional meeting scenario. I think that often people will, like, we have a paralegal at the moment that loves to do creative writing. Like, he writes like all these sorts of theatre production scripts and all that sort of thing. So he'll often talk to us about what he's writing about, or little quirks. I think Robert, my business partner, does life. He's a lifesaver, or like in Queensland, and he'll do that in the morning. So he'll often be talking to the team about, what happened on the beach that morning and who we went to rescue when it wasn't, And so I think, and that softens the environment, especially as well, working in such sort of high pace, high pressure litigation environment. So, I think that's one of the ways. And then also, we had, for example, we moved offices last June, and I thought, what, instead of doing this classic invite clients to see our new office, let's invite our family and our friends. My family never saw my workplace, I'd never been able to invite them to the big law firms to actually walk in. I was able to invite them, I think, on one occasion to court to see me, speak in court. But in terms of, we spend so much time at work. And it was just a wonderful experience, because everyone chose, 4 or 5 people that were closest to them, and they all got to see, like, this is where my love is. So, and it's so special, those sorts of moments. And so, again, it's just seizing different opportunities and thinking a bit creatively about how to do it.
So to clarify then, Danielle, what we're talking about is not so much having like black and white accommodations for people. Like, say, for example, if you're a parent, instead of working 9 to 5, you work from 8 to 4 so you can get home for bath time or whatever. It's not so much about having those hard and fast shifts in the traditional working setup. It's more about creating a culture whereby everyone is supported and feels empowered, so that things like shifting around your working hours, that it's more of an expectation rather than an accommodation.
Absolutely. So I think that it's trust and human connection is so much more important than rigid rules or, arrangements, so to speak. It's just sort of so much more sterile. So the way you've just described it is perfect in the sense that those sort of procedural issues come later. They're secondary.
Yeah. So how do you and Rob, as the firm's leaders, look to really inculcate this vibe and this mindset within the staff?
I think for Rob, he's going to hold a practicing certificate. I think in 2028 it'll be for 50 years. For him, it's just being so adaptive and young-minded in a way, fresh and wanting to learn, which is where we started in this discussion today, Jerome, wanting to learn from different perspectives and from people that have been, doing this a lot less years than what he has. And I think that's just so powerful. And it just means that you can create this connection that otherwise wouldn't be possible. For me, it was led by, I think, sort of more of a passion for change because of my previous experiences, some of which were delightful and I've made, but some of which were just so archaic and so traumatic. And so I just thought, what can we do to implement, but it also always has to come from a place of transparency and authenticity. Otherwise, if it's not truly what you believe to your core, then it's not going to translate in, the culture that you're building.
Yeah. Danielle, I've got a few more questions for you, which we'll get to on the other side of this. Danielle, what are the limitations of this kind of approach, if any, or challenges? Because I would imagine that whilst it's obviously great to create this culture within your own workplace, and I'm sure everyone is along for the ride at the firm, but of course there are external environmental factors that have to be taken into account. What are some of those challenges or roadblocks?
Yes, I think one of the challenges that we see is that, as I was saying earlier, you're always going to have the operational needs of the business at play. There's nothing you can do to remove, a court deadline or to remove certain intricacies that come with being, a full-time litigator. And it's hard. It's a hard profession, and you're fighting the other side. So there is a bit of a challenge when it comes to, I'm probably seeing this a little bit more from younger generation, where they're very good at communicating their needs, communicating, talking. As I was saying, we encourage that, talking about what they need, talking about what they think about certain cases or think about certain issues in the workplace. But then there's also the need for them to have that other perspective of the operational requirements of the firm and the entitlement piece around, and that weighing up between, I'm entitled to this versus the business needs this. So there are challenges for sure that. And I think the way in which I tackle those challenges is to really try and communicate as much as possible before any issues particularly flare up about what those operational needs of the firm are. We're always super organised around deadlines and on that sort of thing. And I always encourage, and I say, if there's ever any issues, in fact, if there's ever any mistakes, always feel open to be transparent and communicative about what's going on, and that tends. But I'd say that's the biggest challenge, that sort of balancing act, because there can often be, the entitlement versus the operational needs. Yeah.
And have you found that if you do make certain accommodations, for lack of a better word, that it then creates a greater burden on you as firm leader? Like, say, for example, if somebody has to go pick up their kid from daycare, does that make your life harder?
Yeah, look, we've got just a pretty good team, and it hasn't made it harder, so to speak. But one thing that I would say is that I found that with certain, how would you put it, accommodations, that, I often will say, look, we can, like, absolutely, like, if a staff member needs something, but it's more just that we might not be able to keep doing that depending on the changing environment or whatever case is on the following month. Because I have had experiences in the past where if we've been able to do something, then that's potentially becomes an expectation that it can be a frequent occurrence. But as you know, things change, so it's such a fluid exercise. So I think, again, that comes down to communication and the understanding that absolutely, we could do picking up, leaving early is a different thing because that's more of a regular occurrence, obviously. Sure. Yeah.
So as a business owner in law, you'd have certain top level priorities, one being, keep the lights on, with the business. Second being, in no particular order, the second being optimal client service delivery. And then a third being to create the best and most hospitable working environment for your staff so that they can thrive, so that they want to stay with this employer. How do you balance those kinds of competing priorities? The first two obviously correlate, but then the third one may sometimes perhaps come into conflict, with those other two. So how do you balance those?
Look, you're constantly, as you say, constantly balancing them. You need to make assessments every day about what is the right, like, judgment calls. It's just discretion and judgment calls about what is the most important, determination to make in that particular moment. And that's all you can do. And I just find every issue's workable, every task is doable. It's just a matter of taking a step back and prioritizing, breathing, talking, and I think you need to mitigate. So it's not just, you don't wait for things to flare up. Thinking ahead is what I'm saying. Thinking ahead and trying to put things in place before you foresee that an issue can occur.
Yeah. So if you're a firm leader, be it a head of a boutique as you are, or if you're a partner at the big end of town managing a practice group, and you want to adopt this kind of approach whereby you don't allow your staff to neglect the other roles that they have in their lives, what are the questions that they need to be asking of themselves in order to make that pivot?
Yeah, so maybe one of the questions is, how much do I know about the people I'm working with?
Yeah.
Do I know much about them? Yeah. If you don't, then you might be thinking, I need to make a pivot. And if the answer is, I don't know all that much, or maybe it's another way of putting it, do I see, how we're talking about the multiple roles that we play, do I only see managing editor Jerome at work? Like, do I only see that side of him, or do I see other sides of him? Some would think that it's unprofessional to see the non-managing it. But I don't know. I think that it's so special to be able to get to know you, as a dad or as a friend. And obviously when we're at work and we're there to perform tasks and do such tasks diligently. But there are certain times and places for our personal and other roles to surface. And so, I'd say that if you don't know all that much, start thinking about your, or you're not seeing softer side of people, or in fact, if you're seeing more of an aggressive side of someone, or someone that's getting worked up about something that clearly there'd be reasons for, then you start thinking about, well, let's start unraveling this. Let's start, and I think part of the challenge, part of the, I guess, part of getting to the bottom of it is to get to know them as a person. So start thinking about what things could we do to soften the load there? What things could we do to promote more discussion around those multiple roles? And it can be writing exercises, it can be oral, it could be, it could even be role playing. Like, you can think of everything and anything. We did for our Christmas party this year. Oh my gosh, the names escape me, Jerome. Where we went into it was like a mystery home.
Right,
We had
okay.
to we were in teams.
Like a Great Escape kind of thing?
Like a Great Escape type thing. And we're all in teams, and some of the skill sets that came out of people in those sorts of dynamic, like I just hadn't seen from people staff members that I just would never have, if I just dealt with them in their traditional role that they hold at work, I would never have unraveled the fact that they were so brilliant at sort of investigative work or whatever it is, or quite funny and, whatever it is. So I just thought it was really special, and it's just an example of creating new experiences that can really cause growth.
Yeah. This might seem like a bit of a left field question at first, but bear with me. In the age of AI and with the emergence of so many new legal technologies, there's a lot of talk about how lawyers can pivot towards being more advisors to their clients rather than being providers of black letter legal services. Do you think that idea of becoming more of an advisor to clients, it kind of goes hand in hand with this idea of not neglecting the other roles that people may have in life, in that there's more focus on that sort of personal or conversational approach to what the working day looks like?
Yeah, I do. I think there's a real connection between advisors, because AI is obviously there to take away friction, but it is not there to replace the connection. I think that in this day and age, it's all about the closeness and the trust that you have with the client, and AI is not going to be able to substitute that. And so it goes hand in hand with, in order to establish the closeness and the trust, you need to get to know your client, and then that's where the human connection comes into it. I had an example of a proof of evidence that I was taking some time ago, and I noticed that the witness that I was talking to was visibly upset, and I asked him if he wanted to take a break, or if he was okay and he wanted to take a break, at which time he'd said he had a sick family member, so he quickly agreed to a break. And when he came back in, he just felt so much better. He was so much more. You could just see the way he was breathing, the way that his his body language was. And we were able to then get such a flow on the proof of evidence and extract such critical information from him that was just absolutely paramount to the winning of the case. And that, I think, is an example of AI wouldn't have been able to pick that up. But then it also links into what we were saying about juniors and the connection piece and the multiple roles that we play, because I guess in order for me to have sensed that from him, Jerome, in that meeting, if I was just had my hat on as the lawyer hat, I wouldn't have registered. And unfortunately, I think there are still a lot of lawyers out there that are like that. Whereas I, at that time, I probably had my mother hat on, I had my friendship hat on, I had my just instinct and care, and I was able to read the room and read the people that were in the room. In that case, it was just him, but I think that's what AI is never going to be able to replace.
Yeah, absolutely. And just finally, before I let you go, if you look ahead to the end of this decade, to 2030, what's your level of optimism that we as a profession can move towards making greater accommodations for all the other roles that lawyers will have in their lives outside of the 9 to 5?
Well, I have great faith in it. I have great faith in it. I just think we've come such a long way. I mean, even just looking at the pandemic itself and how we were all forced to make such drastic changes, many of which have survived. And just to think of where it's come to from now compared to when I was sort of an associate and lawyer and everything, I just think it's absolutely gobsmacking. So, no, I think that, as the years go by, with the prevalence of AI as well, I can see that the future of law is only probably going to become more expansive and more expensive and more volume based and so forth. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the pressure is going to reduce. I think that particularly in the litigation space, the pressure may increase. But I do think that hopefully with the prevalence of AI, there'll be more tools out there that I'm encouraging everyone to dip their toe into now that will alleviate, the friction and, allow for those good parts to set in.
Yeah. Danielle Snell, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Jerome.
And thank you to the listener for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating and review on whatever platform you use to listen to podcasts, as it'll help other lawyers discover and enjoy this show. And if you've got ideas for other episodes we can run, please get in touch at editor@lawyersweekly.com.au. You can also reach us on social media. See you again next time.